Hello, and welcome to Takes One to Write One. I'm Katherine Arcady, and I'm a writer. However, my characters are everything but. While research gives me information about their jobs and lifestyles, it doesn't give me the first-hand experience needed to write a well-rounded character. So I created this podcast where I invite people on to talk about their jobs, their hobbies, or their beliefs, because it takes one to write one. This is part 3 of a 3-part series for cults. I'm talking to an anonymous escapee. We've covered a lot in this series so far, and as we move into this final episode, I want to remind you once again to take care of yourself as you listen. This conversation continues to explore difficult themes: trauma, manipulation, and abuse, and it's okay to step away or take a break if you need to. Stories like this aren't just about the past. They reveal patterns, warning signs, and the resilience of those who break free. My guest's journey is one of survival and self-discovery, and I'm grateful they've trusted us with it. As always, their choice to remain anonymous should be respected, and we approach this story with the empathy and care that it deserves. With that in mind, let's begin. What other gossip was happening amongst the church?
I mean, you would have like your petty gossip, like, oh, she lied about, being sick, or this mom, you know, lied about being busy or at a doctor's appointment just to get out of service. And then you had your bigger stuff, like this person was having an affair. But those were rare. Those were like the big things. But I mean, for the most part, there was not a whole lot of big gossip because it was such a small cult, and being that it was so small, it was easy to prove or disprove. When you only have 100 people, it's like everyone was able to either speak for themselves or not. If you weren't there, you weren't there, and if you were there, you could, prove it. Um, but most of the gossip was either really petty, or it was like again the big stuff, but that was either easily proved or disproved.
You said 100 people. It was there like a flow of, there was a minimum, there was a maximum.
No, it was a consistent, like, everybody knew everybody, everybody knew everybody's business. It was the same people. There were never any strangers. It was like once you were in, that was it. Yeah, same people always. There was never a say hello to a new face, welcome this new person in. It was
Right.
like closed ranks.
For folk to go to doctor's appointments, was it ever discouraged going to the doctor?
So you would pray first, and we would do healing hands first,
Okay.
and then it wasn't like, unless it was like we tried healing hands, we tried prayer, and then only if it was like, hey, there's clearly like a lump and it's cancerous, or it's visibly spreading and getting worse, or it's clearly contagious and now like 10 people have it, then it's a go to the doctor thing. But there was a thing called healing hands.
Yeah, tell me more about healing hands.
So as it sounds, you would get the person who is not well, not unwell, because
Right.
that's period,
Right,
but
right, right.
sick or whatever, and they would sit or kneel at the front, like the pulpit, and then you would form a circle. You wouldn't touch them, but you'd lay your hand over them because they'd be like sitting or kneeling, and you would pray out loud or in your head as the Spirit of the Lord calls to you, the Holy Spirit. And there'd be a group of you, like, a dozen or whatever, and you would just pray. And you would lay healing hands.
Were there some church members that were a little louder than others?
Oh, naturally. Yeah, oh yeah, you get the ones that are, it's usually a female thing. I don't know why, but women are like the healers. So they would, you've always got, I refer to them as like the Aunt Bessies, that are just like, oh, I've got the healing hands power. And it's like, obviously, no, they have no medical training whatsoever. They could probably barely spell their name. And this is what they're known for. It's their time to shine, their 15 minutes of fame, and they just lay them healing hands like they're gonna cure cancer. And no, it never worked. If there was the placebo effect,
Oh,
that's what it
sure.
was.
For these Aunt Bessies, as you call them, with the healing hands, yes, they are healers. Was that like truly believed to a level of like, yes, women are healers, but God is ultimate?
So God is giving them the gift of healing. So my aunt is an Aunt Bessie. To this day, she thinks she's an Aunt Bessie. And she lays healing hands every time I see her because I am chronically ill. And she puts her healing hands on me and she chants sometimes in a language. I am multilingual and she'll chant in a language I have never studied.
Mm.
And I'm just like, okay, sure. And
Is that
she's,
like speaking in tongue style?
yes.
Okay.
And then she says, you're healed, and walks away like she just won a Nobel Prize. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm still in pain, but thanks. And
So it's done for themselves.
oh, absolutely. They get a great, sense of self gratification, thinking they've done the Lord's work, when in reality they've done no different than, farting.
Is Aunt Bessie a reference to something?
No, it's not. It's really just like, okay, this is gonna sound mean, and I apologize if anyone's name is Bessie, and I really am sorry, but like Bessie is like what I picture a cow's name to be on a farm. I grew up by a lot of cow farms,
Yeah, okay.
and even like I did grow up in a very expensive city, but a couple hours north are a lot of cow farms, and a lot of cows were named Bessie. And these ants were always like really large and loud, and I just picture them mooing because they just were full of a lot of horse shit and cow shit. And I didn't grow up around horses, I grew up around cows, so it was like a lot of cow shit. And they just moo and moo and moo because when they would lay hands, they're just like meow, meow. So I'm like, all right, they're Bessies, they're Aunt Bessies.
All right, I get that. And healing hands wouldn't happen if like somebody clearly broke their arm,
No,
right?
yeah, like before, like if you're gonna go to the doctor, so we were playing musical chairs, and one kid, we were kids, like I think we were middle schoolers, we were playing musical chairs, and one kid broke the chair and broke his arm.
Oh no.
And oh my god, I think no, it was Beth, not Bessie, but Beth. But she started doing healing hands while the dad was getting the car to go take him to the ER.
Okay. At least there's some, you know,
So they weren't
need
getting the
a
car,
doctor.
but they were doing healing hands on the way. And then he came back on that next service. They did healing hands in case the doctors weren't enough.
God was giving doctors the ability to heal.
Yes, God does everything.
Is Was it just God, or was there like the Trinity of God, Jesus, and the
Trinity.
Holy Spirit? Okay. What So in my experience of church, there's God, Jesus, the Holy Trinity. They're the same, they're
All in
different,
one.
they're all in one. Was it taken a step further with your experience?
Not necessarily. I mean, they were all in one, but they were separate. They were equal but different. I mean, it's shit either way you slice it, in my opinion. So
Was there a heavy presence with Jesus, or was it mostly God?
it was mostly God, but also Jesus. It was like God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit in that order, I guess. But there was no shit on Jesus. It was like, oh God, sorry.
I get it. I get it. What what were you able to watch as a kid? Like you said, Veggie Tales, not Hercules. Was Disney like not a thing?
So there were some Disney movies, like, but they had to be like we could watch Cinderella and Snow White. It had to be classic. It had to be like, your damsel in distress needing a man to save her. It couldn't be
Oh.
none of the strong, independent woman stuff. Um, we weren't allowed to watch anything that our parents had not seen before, and we couldn't watch anything without asking our parents, including if we weren't at the house. So if we were at another cult member's house
Hmm.
and they had a TV and their kids wanted to watch a movie, and it was a movie we knew our parents had already seen, we could not watch it without calling them and asking if we could watch it.
That's a lot of control, even in it.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so once you were out and you could watch relatively anything, how did that feel?
I hate to use the word overwhelming again, but it was overwhelming. And um, it was weird because I was like, I don't even know what I like to watch, but I know sure as shit it ain't VeggieTales. I actually found, I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but I was like, I can't stand musicals. I'm
Valid.
wondering if it was because of all the singing in VeggieTales. And like all the Christian children's stuff has singing in it, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it could be it. But I actually love, like, I don't know why I'm obsessed, but I love horror. I have yet to find a movie that like bothers me or scares me. I can sleep to all the Saw movies, and I think it's because, like, to me, the Bible is so much more off-putting.
Ooh. Okay. Elaborate on that.
Well, most people they're like, "Oh yeah, I've read the Bible." I'm like, they don't talk about the verses where two sisters get their father drunk and rape him, or the verse where some villagers chase a man to his house, and the dad's like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, we want to rape your son." And he's like, "No, don't do that. Here's my daughter. Rape her instead." So it's like, yeah, people say they know the Bible. Are they like, oh, take these books out of schools? They're terrible. You want the Bible in schools? Because those verses are in there.
Are there any verses that you might still hold close to you because you like them?
Not a damn one. Sorry to say it so obstinately, but
Hey.
um, as someone who has read the Bible cover to cover,
Mm-hmm.
I have been to Awanas and Vacation Bible School every summer of my youth. And if you don't know what that is, or for your
I
listeners who
know of
might not,
Vacation Bible School. What's Awanas?
it's pretty much the same thing. It's like you go to a camp. It's like a night camp where you're not there all night, like overnight, but you're there every like Friday night for a couple months or whatever, and you study Bible verses and you memorize them and you do camp like stuff or whatever.
Indoctrinating.
Yeah, it's more indoctrination. You wear these vests and you get badges and all this cool stuff. It's like think of Boy Scouts but for Christians almost, but without the wildlife. Just add Bible stuff.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I'll show you pictures. Um, it's ridiculous. I'm just thinking about it, but I've done all of it. Like I cannot stress enough how much of the Bible I knew. I still know more than I want to, and I've forgotten a lot in the last decade and a half of my life. At my age now, I am almost equally out of the cult as I have been in.
Okay.
And I still know way too much of the Bible. Imagine me at my prime, okay?
Oh.
And I still can't think of a single verse in the Bible that is worth a shit.
Even like First Corinthians, love is patient, love is
No,
kind.
it's not. And I'm not saying
Mm.
like I'm against love. I'm
Sure,
happily
sure, sure.
married. But like, do we need a verse to tell us that?
That's a good point. All right.
Love is what you make of it. Love is love is a choice. Love is the effort you put in. If you need to say love is kind, like, okay, well, be kind. I mean,
Love is a choice.
that's what I say.
Absolutely. Uh, Yeah. What was it like regaining your freedom of choice?
It reminds me of the first few days after I graduated boot camp from the army. When I graduated boot camp, I remember like 2 days after, and I was back home, and I just stood staring at my closet, and I was like, I don't know what to wear. For the last 6 months, I've been told exactly what to wear. And now I'm staring at a closet and I have no idea what to wear. And it was like choice overload. And so having freedom of choice was like, I don't know what to do with it.
Mm.
I didn't know what music to listen to. I didn't know what to watch. I didn't know who to spend my time with, what friends to make, who to trust. It was scary. It was like, how do I know if I'm making a bad decision or not? But
Yeah, because it's not dictated by whether or not God's going to be okay with it.
right.
It's just,
And God would tell my parents, and my parents were guided by the pastor, and the pastor was guided by God. And it was like there were so many channels that by the time I got to my parents, it had to have been clear, if it was okay or not. So it was like coming just from me. It was like, how do I trust myself?
did you have to learn how to trust yourself?
I don't know if I ever even did. It kind of just came to a point of like, I'm just doing it whether it feels right or not. I'm just gonna do it. And I learned very early on that I did not have good intuition at first,
Hmm?
and I think that's natural for any young adult,
Sure.
but especially so when you are coming from a cult where you weren't given any choice. Again, obey or be beaten. Blindly obey.
Mm.
Um, and then after a while, it was like, you know what? I think the issue wasn't my intuition; it was second guessing it. It was assuming that I couldn't have good intuition. It was assuming that I could only fail.
How'd you get over that assumption?
By just realizing that, I'm not the only one that's living life by making choices left and right. And while I may not be in the majority, having been born into a cult and I'm now facing life this way, I'm certainly not the only person just trying to make the best life with what cards they've been dealt. You know, everybody is.
Yeah. That's kind of beautiful.
Well, thank you.
You mentioned just now your experience with the military, and I asked you not long ago, mostly in jest, what's the difference between a cult and a military? And you had a really, really good answer to that.
Yeah. So there are several differences that I'd like to kind of point out, and the biggest one is in the military, you have a choice. You're joining because you are aware of what you're joining. And I did say earlier, nobody joins a cult because you're not fully aware of what you're getting into. But in the military, you are. You're signing that dotted line. You're aware of it, aware of what you're getting into. It may not be exactly what you had in mind, but more or less, you're not blindly signing your life away in the same way. Um, Another is, in my experience, not everyone's, but in my experience, I was a legal adult when I joined the military, but I was not when I was signed up for the cult. It was not of my own choice. I was born into it, and I had zero say or choice in the matter. Um, while there are many adults that do join cults, that is their own choice, unfortunately. I think noticing the red flags is up to them. Um, but for the children, we don't have a choice. We're not old enough, we're not mature enough, and we don't have a say of what our parents do. But I think those are the two biggest things is, for me, age, and two, knowing well in advance. And also, I think the manipulation. In the military, yeah, there's manipulation, but it's up front. Again, you know what you're signing up for. You know.
Sure. Sure. Did you find comfort being in the military after your experience in the cult?
Yeah, actually, it was almost comical because it's like there are a lot of jokes that the military is like a cult, but it's like after you've been in a real one, it's like it's kind of cute 'cause it's like it's all the pros without the cons. It's like the only money they're taking is like for my life insurance. Nothing that no job would not do. Um, And you do get that family. Obviously, for me, it was an improvement on my real one. Nothing
I
against my
bet.
siblings that they don't know I'm doing this. I do love you. Um, but there's a lot of good things. Like for me, came out of the military. I had some good experiences there. There are a lot of people that have some bad experiences in the military, obviously, and I did have quite a bit of bad experiences in the military too. But obviously, had way more bad experiences in religion.
Sure.
Um, a lot more trauma in religion, and that's coming from a disabled veteran here. So that's kind of sad, but that's just life. Um, both things, I have two things in common with both, or something in common with both things, and that is my dark humor. That I was blessed with both religion and the military, and that is just the darker the humor, the better the experience.
Okay.
So I learned that with religious trauma, but I think the military really helped, and I think that's why I can do this interview and get through life peachy keen, because the military is so good at teaching you that dark humor. It's like you joke about the darkest, most horrible things in the military, and it makes the religious trauma seem not half bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say that you're learning this dark humor, how does that come about?
So like we would do field exercises, and that's like where I was stationed, it rains a lot. Probably gives away my location there. But we were stuck out in the rain for like a week, and it just kept getting longer and longer. This one week turned into longer and longer, and there's no electricity. There's no. You're in a tent, and you're just sleeping in the rain, waking up in the rain. Your socks are wet, your clothes are wet, your sleeping bag's wet. It's just miserable. There's no hot food. Everything sucks. And my friend and he was like, you know what? If we wake up tomorrow and the commander says we got to be here another day, I'm just gonna kill myself. And I was like, you know what? Let's make a suicide pact. There's a lot of trees. We'll just hang ourselves. And he was like, all right, great. So the next day came, and the commander's like, we're staying another day. And I was like, all right, which tree? And we just things like that.
I
You just
see.
you make dark humor, and it just we ended up having to go to uh, army substance abuse program together. And I don't know if you know much about the Army uniform, but you get little tabs for your successes, like if you go to Ranger School or Mountaineer School, or
Really?
yeah. So he made tabs for us, same friend, that we went to substance abuse program. You're not authorized to wear them at all, but he did, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna wear mine too. So we wore ours into our unit, and our our platoon leader saw them, and I thought he was gonna kill us, but he just started laughing, and it was great.
This substance abuse program, was it mandated from hearing what y'all were talking about?
No,
Okay.
which is not a good thing.
Right.
That, that's just worse, actually, because
Mm.
that means there was another offense. But yeah. But that's the dark humor.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Absolutely, that's my
Sort of
favorite saying.
situation. Absolutely. So we touched a little bit on that you kind of get to choose what you absorb in pop culture now and how you learn. What tactics have you utilized to getting the pop culture refresh into your brain?
Um, I don't know. As much as I hate to say it, like Facebook, um, and pretty much Friends. I think not the show. I can't. I hate to say I can't stand the show.
Oh, it's all laugh track.
I can't. For me, if an adult show, meaning not like Nickelodeon, like I get kids shows need laugh tracks,
Sure.
but if an adult show needs a laugh track, I'm not watching it.
That's valid.
Yeah, because it reminds me of the cult. If they do the thinking for me, then yeah,
Oh.
it's replacing the autonomy and the thinking.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's certainly a way to put it. What is it about horror that you're able to enjoy?
I think it's the tangibility, honestly. I grew up with
Oh,
the like hell and the afterlife and the intangible,
inta- intangible?
intangible,
Yeah.
non-tangible.
You can't touch it. It's the idea of it
Yeah.
sometime in the future.
Yes, it's deferred. It's something
Yeah.
you can't deal with now. And it's something you can't see, touch, none of the five senses. No matter how much you prep for it, you can't escape it, you know. But horror movies, I mean, like the cult I believed in, there weren't ghosts. You know, when you die, you don't go to purgatory, you go to heaven or hell. That's it. Your day of judgment is the day you die. Very black and white. So, like, even, horror movies or scary movies with ghosts in it, like, that didn't bother me. And horror movies with, like, kidnappings or, abductions or home break ins and invasions, it was, like, tangible. It's human. And it was like, well, God will provide me or protect me, or if my time comes, that's God's time for me. Whatever it was, there was a peace about it.
Mm.
Um, so I think horror movies, it was the opposite of everything. Everything I feared would be later, so there was nothing I could fear on this planet.
Hmm.
And now it's the opposite. Because it's like, well, I don't fear anything after this life, and I don't fear anything during this life, so.
Copacetic.
Yeah.
You mentioned Saw.
Yes.
What other movies are you a fan of?
I do admire, I love Annabelle, Origins or Creation. I think it is, Sinister is one of my absolute favorites.
Really?
Love Sinister. I like a lot of the, like, wild and out there horror movies. Some of them are, like, Indian or, Thai, so I don't even know their names.
Ooh, but those get like really crafty.
Yeah. I also like some of the Korean or Japanese ones. So I'm not good with names, but if it's on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, or Peacock, I've seen it. No matter how well known or lesser known it is, I've seen just about every horror movie. If it's on any kind of like blog or Pinterest or list, including the Serbian film, like A Human Centipede, I've seen it all.
Ugh.
I've seen it all.
Oh, that was a weird era.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I've seen it.
Were there ever doomsday prophecies with the cult? I know that there are some where it's like, this is the second coming. Did you experience that?
So we didn't have like, Y2K or any of the like, May 12th or, whatever, like this day is the day the world's ending, but we did have a lot of prepare for the second coming.
Mm.
So it was like, it's closer than you think, and, be ready. The Left Behind series was something we had to read and watch. You're looking at, I'm gonna explain. So it's a book, and there was a movie, and it was about a man who was not a Christian when the rapture happened. And then he became a Christian, but it was too late, and he wanted to like warn everybody. And in the Bible, when the rapture happens, if you're not a Christian, you're stuck. And you won't be able to kill yourself. You won't be able to die because it'll be so horrible, but you're meant to experience it as a punishment for not believing. And it's supposed to be like the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody, and that's the point.
Did you grip onto that, or was it just reading and then?
I mean, it was the whole reason why I never showed my shoulders. It was like, it was more of the, trauma, religious trauma, and hell, fire, and damnation. And it was hell on earth, literally.
You and I have watched a few documentaries on cults, the Twin Flames documentary, the Keep Sweet and Obey documentary. What about these documentaries do you feel get it right? And do they ever get it wrong sometimes?
So I'll start with the first part. What do they get right? A lot of it is the helplessness and the feeling trapped. Once you're in, you're in. There is a lot of like, I don't want to say blackmail, but there's a lot of leverage that they have against you. Um, Especially again, having been born into it, it's like they knew everything about me. I mean, like as a baby, like literally every single thing about me.
Things you couldn't even remember and know.
Right, exactly. So it's like I had no knowledge of anything of the world, nothing. I mean, they could have told me that like we lived on a turtle shell, and I would have believed it because I had no prior knowledge. Like again, the homeschooling curriculum I grew up on had no evolution, had no sex ed, had very no science, nothing. And that's just what I thought was normal. So there was a lot of control, and it really made me feel helpless. And that I feel that when I watch these cult documentaries, there's so much leverage, there's so much manipulation, and there's so much helplessness. And when I see these people talk about that, it's like, yeah, I resonate with that.
Mm.
Even when they're adults talking and they weren't born into it, they still they still communicate a level of helplessness, a level of feeling stuck. And that's because a lot of them do pour all their money into it. They do pour all their belongings. They sell everything. And I get that. That's what my parents did, all four of them. So it's like, yeah, you are stuck. You have nowhere to go. Your kids are involved in this. A lot of them control the children in a lot of ways. They blackmail. They have dirt on your kids or dirt on you. So it's like, you are stuck in a way. And I definitely think they get that right. They get right a lot of the amount of secrets that they can stockpile on you, a lot of the money that they lie. They lie. They do a lot of lying, a lot of manipulation. They tell you that they're doing this, this, and this. They've got great big plans, a lot of hope, and you don't see any of it. You never see any of it. It's all future, 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 but it's all going in their back pockets.
Mm.
And it's one, two, or three people, maybe a handful at most, that see the money, and everybody else is working. I mean, that's all the cult documentaries I see. There's people doing physical, manual labor, and everybody else is, you know, they're unfortunately they're suckers that are putting in all this heart and soul and effort, and you got the one or two people that are profiting.
That is so unfortunate.
It's heartbreaking.
Do you find yourself, I suppose for lack of a better term, getting triggered while watching this, or do you find solace?
Um, Sometimes a little bit of both. I do get like, oh man, this makes me so angry because I feel for these people, and then I'm like, well, I feel because I've been there. Maybe not in the same degree because I don't feel like I was wronged in the same degree because again, like I wasn't directly lied to about my money. I wasn't directly lied to about my efforts. I feel like I was more lied to by my parents, but they were lied to.
Mm.
Like I have to remember at some point they were victims, but it's really hard to do that when I feel like they lied to me. And yeah, they were victims, but why didn't they see the red flags?
Ooh.
But at some point, like, use that common sense, and why weren't you asking questions? Why weren't you, you know, using some forethought? And especially when you have children and when you're having to live with another family and, all these things that probably could have put some pieces together years before it got that bad. But, it is what it is. So
Common sense isn't too common,
clearly,
as I
yeah.
figure it out.
As to what the documentaries got wrong, I can't speak too much because every cult is different.
Mm.
So I don't necessarily know what a cult may have gotten wrong on that particular cult. Unless they write one about my particular, cult, I won't know. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. I don't want to speak out of my lane,
Sure.
out of my bounds because I don't belong to some of those TLC ones. As much as they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how they use the same tactics,
Oh,
but they're
absolutely.
still wildly different.
Yeah, it's like same methods, same applications. They're just, different names, different people, really. And there might be one or two differences here or there, but, you know.
I'm not sure if my question is, would you like to see something being made, or would you feel that your, not that I'm giving possession, the cult that you were a part of, do you foresee it getting that sort of recognition enough to be documented in that way?
No, I don't, and I'm okay with that.
Mm.
It was really small, even for a cult's perspective. And I feel like with everything that happened in it, as wild as it may seem, from a cult's perspective, it was just so local. It was so small, and it's so minute in the greater scheme of things. I don't know. Maybe it's my mental way of coping with it, where it's just like it's not really worth it.
Mm.
But I don't see that happening, and I'm okay with that. It's just I feel like if TLC were to reach out to me, I'd be like, no, I have no interest in that. I'm okay with this,
Yeah.
but I don't see that happening. I don't think anyone's really interested in something that's small.
Mm. You say local, and that brings up a question in my head that anybody could fall victim to a cult. That members of, the community that we live in now, that any community is not safe
Yeah,
from one.
yeah. That local from where I was born is on the other side of the country from where I'm sitting right now. So that is kind of crazy to think about because local is not local to where
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
where I'm uh, located right now. But that is a good point. Yeah, cults. All it takes is a manipulative person and people who are wanting something bad enough to believe bad enough.
Mm. What what traits would that person have to have?
A lot of charisma, leadership, um, a way with words, probably, articulate, I would say. Um, Someone who can seem relatable, but also at the same time can seem like an idol, someone you want to emulate.
That's wild. And I'm not writing about cults, but given that this podcast is for writers, what resources would you suggest writers utilize to better write about cults, either fictional or realistic, in their own writing?
That is a really good question. I would recommend any documentary you can find. I know that like Netflix has some good ones, Amazon Prime has some good ones. There are a lot of good cult documentaries out there, and psychology textbooks
Okay.
has some. There's even like on thrift books, um, some cult psychology textbooks are good. Um, yeah, just your staples.
Okay. Would I search cult psychology textbooks?
Yep,
Easy as that?
easy as that.
Okay. And if I were to only watch one documentary, which I don't advise, watch all the documentaries, get a well rounded opinion on it. But if I were to only watch one documentary to get that cultness through, what would it be?
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it.
Okay, here we go. So there is a cult series on Amazon Prime called Cults and Extreme Beliefs, and each episode is like a different cult that they go into,
Okay.
and I liked that because you kind of get uh, a little bit of insight on a few different cults, which I found really interesting. But I also highly recommend the Be Sweet, Pray and Obey, I think is what it's called.
That was a wild one for us to watch.
That
together.
that was more extreme than my experience. So that one was a lot even for me. Um, so I do recommend that. That was good. My experience was a little bit closer to like the Duggars. If I had to compare it to something that more people would be familiar with.
Okay.
Like for reference, where on the cult radar would you find me? It'd be like that. So, um, but those two are good documentaries. The Be Sweet, Pray and Obey is on Netflix, and the other one, like I said, is on Amazon Prime.
All right. And a final sentiment. Since you said it's similar to the relationships where it takes twice the amount of time that you were in the relationship, and now that you're approaching similar to that, being out of it, what is the best way to heal, do you think?
I think the best way to heal from a cult, from leaving a cult, is to find a source, not necessarily to replace, because like we said, you don't want to replace one cult with another, but to find a source of joy, and it could be a new religion. I found myself wanting to find a new religion, and I think that's appropriate and healthy.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to compare, religion and relationships too much, but it's kind of like, it is like relationships. And, like I say, when you get out of a relationship, you got to find one with yourself. For me, I found Satanism, and of course, you're like, of course, she worships the devil now. And for the reference, Satanism is not worshiping Satan.
Correct.
It is worshiping oneself. It is freedom of religion, freedom from religion. It's recognizing that I don't have to worship anyone or anything. I am not a sheep, so I don't need a shepherd.
Ooh.
Yes, and I haven't been told that I am a sheep and the Lord is my shepherd for so long. It's so nice to kind of switch that around.
I know that Bible verse.
So that's kind of the difference between Satanism and atheism. Atheism is there is no God. Satanism is I am my own God. And I kind of like that. I mean, at heart, I'm an atheist because I don't believe in God, but I added Satanism where it's like, I am my own God. I am responsible for my own choices, the master of my own universe kind of a thing. So I think that is healthy. For a while, I was like, well, let me try Hinduism or Buddhism, or, let me try. I kind of Googled and I researched and I was looking up all the different world religions and Native American religions and, like every possible religion besides, your Western religions that were too similar to Christianity for obvious reasons.
Sure.
I just wanted to see what could I get into, what could I believe, what could I fit. And then I was like, none of these. They just didn't work for me. And that's fine. If you find something, if you're in a cult or we're in a cult and you need to heal, find what works for you. And there's no wrong answer. Maybe you were in a Christian cult and your answer is Christianity. That's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. There is no wrong answer to religion as long as you're not harming yourself or others. And that's my philosophy for life. As long as you're not harming yourself or others, there's no wrong way to do it. But I think that's my best answer is the best way to heal is finding your healthy version of you. And for me, that was Satanism. It's like, okay, Satanism has tenets. They're not commandments, but they're tenets, and it's your healthy way to live life. And it's, the best way I can function and be myself.
I love that.
Thank you.
In a final sentiment, what might you want to say to somebody listening who is questioning the organization that they are currently in, that it may also be of occult persuasion?
Keep questioning, because questioning is the one thing they will not allow.
Mm.
It is the one thing that they will condemn. They will throw everything at you for questioning. They will call you weak of faith. They will say you are, they will do everything in their power to humiliate and shame and make you feel like you are beneath and undeserving and that you shouldn't question. But that's all the more reason to question. Because if you are in a real, legitimate religious practice and you are questioning, the appropriate response is, well, let's find some answers.
Yeah.
Let's dig through this religious text. Let's talk about it. Let's pray about it. Let's help you feel more secure. But if their response is to criticize and condemn you, then that's wrong.
Mm.
So keep questioning. Tell them you're questioning. Test them.
I really dig that. And this has been a lovely interview. So thank you for the honor of being able to talk to you about this.
Thank you so much for having me and for respecting my privacy and just allowing me to share my experience to hopefully potentially help either someone who may have been, may be in, or may want to write about someone who has any kind of cult related experience.
Beautiful. This has been the third and final part of a 3-part series for cults. This series has explored the harsh realities of coercion, control, and survival. And if you're feeling the weight of it, you're not alone. It's natural to feel a mix of emotions: anger, grief, even exhaustion, when confronting difficult truths in your own research. But just as we honor the stories of those who've lived through these experiences, we must also honor our own emotional boundaries. It's okay to take time to process. It's okay to set limits on what you engage with. And it's okay to reach out for support if and when you need it. Healing, whether personal or collective, isn't about carrying the weight of every story, but about learning, understanding, and finding ways to move forward with compassion. I deeply appreciate you for listening, for learning, and for holding space for this conversation. These topics aren't easy, but they matter. Thank you for being a part of it. Please stay tuned for upcoming interviews. Follow me at Takes One to Write One on socials, find research material on my website, Substack, and YouTube, and vibe to my writer-centric playlists on Spotify and YouTube Music. Until then, I'm Katherine Arcady, and remember, it takes one to write one.